Hello there. I'm just waiting for the stream to uh, show up on my side. Um, great. I think it's shown up. Yep. I need to close that window so we don't get a feedback loop. Great. Great. Okay. Good afternoon. So after years of traveling and after years of traveling with cameras on vacation and a few eclipses, traveling to see a few eclipses and just seeing eclipses locally, I'm going to go over the kind of things that I personally am going to be bringing along bringing along for this eclipse. I like kind of my goals are, or my kind of North Star. I like staying flexible when it comes to solar eclipses. I'm not sure exactly where I'm going to end up because of various factors, especially weather. I'll probably do another video about this in sometime in the next few days. Either it'll be a kind of a normal video or a live stream, but I want to go over that sooner rather than later because it might be of use to some people. And as far as what I am trying to accomplish during the solar eclipse, for me personally, my primary goal is to go see it visually, to see it with my family. That's the number one goal. The secondary goal is to get a lot of photos of totality. I'm going to be trying some different things this time that I haven't tried on previous eclipses. I'm not going to go into them in this video because there's a high chance of failure, I think. It's kind of a stretch goals for myself, and I wouldn't want anyone else to try this out unless they've been to more than one eclipse, because it could just be a colossal waste of time. And finally, the last goal for the eclipse is I want to get some video, and if there's a good signal, I might live stream kind of what I'm doing. But that's a very huge kind of, I'm not sure that that's going to happen, mostly because I don't know where I'll end up ahead of time, and I might not have time to set it up, and I don't want to waste time trying to get all of that situated. And plus, I'm a little concerned that if it's not in an urban area, or even if it is in an urban area, that the cell networks might be busy because other people might be like uploading their photos or whatever. Or so we'll see. Play it by ear. But the here and now. But today, what I'm going to talk about is kind of the things that are in my bag for the eclipse, literally. And there's a few items that are outside of the bag. I don't have some of them physically here. One of them are just, I'll start with like the comfort items before I get into like the viewing and tech items. Stuff like sunscreen. You're going to be in the sun for several hours, especially if you're in Texas. The sun's already getting intense. Something like folding chairs. I'm going to be bringing probably a few of those, just, because there's a decent amount of time, especially if you're there for the whole eclipse, where not much is happening. And so if you're in a park or some other place, some outdoor place, or blankets to put down on the ground, sit on the grass, whatever. Also, speaking of being kind of out in the open, because especially if it's in Texas, the weather could be, you never know what the weather could be. It could be in the 80s. It could be it'll probably be very, ideally it'll be sunny to see the eclipse. But I'm going to be bringing like a beach umbrella, just a shield from the eclipse, and snacks and water and stuff. So that's kind of like the comfort items. Now to the more nitty gritty stuff. And I'm going to be bringing a hat to keep this hair, my head from burning. So as far as the viewing things, so here is, not trying to make this ASMR, but so of course the eclipse glasses, getting these for everybody, everybody everybody that's going along. The other thing I ran across recently that I thought I'd mention that are kind of interesting, it's these, I don't know if I showed them in a previous stream. These are magnifying glasses. I saw them on Amazon. They were still there a few days ago. One thing to be aware of, they're starting to get shipping delays on some of the items. I saw like this kind of a filter. I was seeing for some of them delivery estimates after the eclipse, so get some. And I'll get into some other things that to have just in case you don't. You can always DIY it with, and I'll show you in a second what you can use for that. But I should have unwrapped this. But you can get, so these are the magnifying glasses, and if you see, they kind of make like a little pair of binoculars. It's 2x. It's not much magnification, but it just makes the sun a little bit bigger in the sky, and it's actually kind of cool. It's I ended up picking up a few of these because they're more expensive than the normal glasses, so eclipse glasses, but they're less expensive than like the plastic eclipse glasses, and they give you magnification. And the quality was, at least this one, when I looked at the sun, the quality was pretty good. I was pretty happy with it. So other things, I have my little box of goodies here off to the side. I got, I'm not going to open this up. It's not open. It's going to make some noise, but in here are some solar film. So it's basically the same kind of material that's in these filters, but it's just the raw material. And this, I'm also seeing some shipment delays on some of the sizes. But if you get something like this, if you can't get a filter like this for your lens, you can always get this and make your own. So that's kind of the filtration aspect. Now, onto the actual, I saw something on the screen. I was like, let me move that. So as far as other gear, this is where we get into other gear. So let me move this out of the way briefly. That made more noise than I expected. Okay. This one, unfortunately, was kind of off. It's on the ground, and this table's a little elevated. So here is my favorite and only smart telescope. And I've showed this before, but I'll show it for those who haven't seen it. So here's the is this? Yeah, I've got to do it this way. Hopefully this won't make too much noise on the microphone. But yeah, here's the Seestar Smart Telescope, and I'm going to be bringing this along because everything packs up in this nice, convenient, or this nice little carrying case that it came with. And it's got a little tripod, and it's got a little solar filter. So I'm going to be bringing this along. And I'll show you in a second kind of a comparison. Not in a second, but in a little bit. A little later. Basically the differences between between the going with something like the Seestar and a telephoto lens. So that's another thing. Now, if you have seen my other video that I just put on YouTube the other day on taking photos of a solar eclipse, I'm going to be bringing along 2 tracking mounts, and there's a reason for that. I had a star tracker. It was a fairly inexpensive star tracker in 2017, and it failed partway just before the eclipse. So in the interest of redundancy, I'm going to be bringing this, which is also a star tracker. It's a higher capacity one than the one I had. It's got this counterweight, which should help with the larger telephoto lens, so the motor doesn't work as hard. I think that's what happened to my other one. I'm not sure. And in that video I released, which I'll link in a card after this stream is done, you can align it approximately. You can either align it the night before. It has to be aligned to basically the north, like north celestial pole. So you can align it ahead of time, or you can kind of approximate it. And I was able to get good enough results for a solar eclipse the night before. A couple times I've tried it out. So I'm going to be bringing this. This is one of the mounts. And here you can see on the top here, there's a place for I'll show on the other mount. So on the other mount, we have, or the other tracker I'm going to bring. This is a sun only tracker. It's basically, this is all it does, is it tracks the sun. It works great. I'm going to be bringing it along. I have this one has I have a little plate here, which I can attach a tripod head to it and then attach the camera to that, or you can get adapters and connect the camera directly to this. But this is going to be I'm bringing this along. I used this in the fall when there was a partial eclipse. It's technically an annular eclipse, but here where I live, it was only a fairly deep partial, and it worked great. I did a time lapse, which I have a video on, just kind of a quick little video of that eclipse taken with this mount. It worked great. And it's not a tracking mount, but just for good measure, I'm going to be bringing just a normal tripod. I've had this tripod for a shockingly long time. I'm not gonna go into how long I've had that tripod for. It's been a few decades since I bought that. Anyway, so multiple mounts. Now I'm able to do this because I live in Texas. I have a car. I have a minivan, and I'm going to be driving. So I have some extra room beyond just my bag for like these mounts. These mounts also come with tripods, which are pretty bulky, but not exactly travel friendly, except if you're doing it in a car or a vehicle. And but the Seestar is nice and compact, so you could fly with that if you needed to. And the Seestar, I'm not going to go into the specifics, but I plan on using the Seestar for the partial phases of the eclipse and doing like a time lapse of the sun. It does great, nice close-ups. I'm going to show a couple of example images later, but that's what I'm planning. I'm not necessarily planning on using it for totality, but it's going to be, I'll have it available in case I decide to use it for totality. But I'm probably going to be focused more on the rest of the kit, which is in this backpack. Oh my gosh. The one that was glowing in the thumbnail. So this is a camera backpack. Before I open it up, one of the things that is kind of interesting that I'm bringing along is, this is just like a little kind of, it's not a very heavy duty tripod. I bought this like last year. But the thing that's perhaps more interesting that people might want to consider is this thing. This is a, what do you call it? A little cell phone mount. If you have an iPhone, it does the MagSafe stuff. So like it attaches like that magnetically, which is pretty cool. And if you want to take some photos or video of yourself, or kind of like overall images of the eclipse, this is kind of handy. Or there, if you don't have an iPhone or one that isn't MagSafe, you can get like cell phone mounts. They're fairly inexpensive, and slap it on a tripod or something, and then you can you'll be able to use it as a secondary camera, which can be helpful. So let me move the microphone over here and hopefully not make too much noise here on the mic. I'm trying not to cause too much sound. So looking at things here, I have, let me slide this over. I have like extra memory cards, an external SSD, so I can clear off cameras if I need to. Yeah, I think that's really important to have basically redundancy and extra space. So in here, I've got the backup batteries. I've got an ultra wide lens. I'm not sure if I'm going to be using this during the eclipse. I'm going to go through and kind of do a curation of the hold on, let me, curation of the, an audit of everything in here and maybe kind of make adjustments. I have just a 360 camera. Let me move this up. Okay. I have a 360 camera here. These are kind of cool. I have it. I'm bringing it along. If you have an action camera, bring it along. Well, make sure it works. Don't bring too much gear. Don't bring more gear than you can deal with during the eclipse. But, you know, as a secondary camera, a cell phone, 360 camera, action camera, that could be handy. So here's one of the cameras I'm bringing. The other camera is actually the one that's up there taking a video of this overhead shot. But basically I'm going to be taking two cameras. One of them I got quite a few years ago. Again, I think, in 2017 I had two cameras. In October I had two cameras. I'll have them shooting different things. One's kind of the primary, and then if it has issues, like if I wake up that morning and the camera just won't turn on, I've got a backup. So that's kind of what my philosophy is redundancy, because you get caught a few times, not even necessarily in an eclipse, but some like if you're taking photos of a wedding or something, and you you don't want, failure's not an option. So what else do I have in here? So that second camera I'm bringing would go in this space here. And then I have this intervalometer, which I could probably do like a short video just on the things this does, but it's super useful. Basically, it plugs into the camera. This part plugs into the camera, and it has multiple modes. You can use it as a self timer, where without shaking the camera, you can basically push start and it'll trigger the shutter. It has some of these others aren't as useful, but like the intervalometer, which is this setting up here, you can see it. It's fairly simple. They're fairly inexpensive, like $20, I think, on Amazon, something like that. You can go in and you set up intervalometer, and this is actually what I used for that eclipse time lapse in October. I set it to take a photo every, I don't remember, 3 or 4 seconds, and just told it to take, 1,000 of them. And you just hit start, and then I had it on the sun tracking mount, and it just went, which is great. Like, I didn't have to do anything, and when I was done, I ended up with a few thousand images. Now, one thing, that's more images than the camera has battery. So you either end up having to swap batteries partway through, in which case you kind of have to keep an eye on it so it doesn't in case it runs out of battery, which is actually what I did. I just swapped out batteries. But there's also dummy batteries you can get, which I'm going to be using this go around on one of the cameras. It's going to have a dummy battery, and it's basically something that plugs in to where the battery goes, and then you plug it into like an outlet, and then you don't have to worry about it. It just keeps going. Of course, then you have a different problem. You have to have like a battery bank or some kind of other inverter thing. This thing is an adapter ring. Basically, these cameras I have are newer-ish Canons, and they have a different mount than this lens. This is also a Canon mount lens, but it's the old SLR mount. It's the EF mount. These are RF mount. This adapts between the two. So that's why I have this. And then here's the big kahuna. This is the 150 to 600. I've used this now on 2-3 eclipses. It's not the fastest lens. You can get longer telephotos. You can get faster telephotos. The problem is they're extremely expensive. And this one wasn't cheap, but it was a good trade-off. It was a trade-off I was willing to make. And it's worked great. That solar filter, if I could find it. No, I'm not crushing this solar filter. This solar filter fits over like this. It's just kind of a friction fit, so it works fine. And like I say, I've been able to use it on more than one eclipse. Now this part of the lens came with the lens. It's the mount, but then I added this plate, and this plate. This plate fits into this part of the of these mounts, these tracking mounts. So this plate slides onto there. So that's how I attach this large heavy lens securely to those tracking mounts. What else is here of interest that might be of interest? I have like a memory. I think I mentioned this, a memory card holder that just kind of slides open. It's really compact and nice for storing extra cards. Because that's another thing. If your card is older, or you wouldn't want a memory card to fail during the eclipse, that would be bad. So what else do we have in here? So there'll be room for, there'll be a second camera, two cameras, wide angle, and super telephoto lens, action camera, extra batteries, extra memory cards. Actually, my laptop will be in kind of this, kind of over there, in the top, and then this piece. This normally is Velcroed, but I left it unvelcroed. Here's some snacks. I have a little duster thing to. You can use wipes to get dust off your lenses, but I like using the air dusters because they never dry out and they're always good. Advil and gaffer tape. This is useful if you have a problem with like your solar filter, if you DIY it, or if you're afraid it's going to come off. Gaffer tape is great. I've used it actually on that filter to attach it to a toy telescope. It worked fine, but I'm bringing along gaffer tape because you just never know. And what else? I think that is actually the only things that are physically in the backpack. But what else? That wasn't it. I have some, oops, as I the joys of trying to juggle this all live. So the other thing I have is this little bag. I didn't have it in my backpack, but it's got like little clamps and the Allen wrenches so I can re-tighten things. Basically, it's just about making sure you have everything you need, especially if you're not at home. But even if you are at home, you don't want to be kind of running in and out during the eclipse. So it's good to have everything you kind of might need as far as things you might need to fix. So I have like different kind of ties in here, super clamps, different little adapters. So if something has to be kind of modified in the field on the fly, it's all about kind of being prepared. So another thing I had forgotten, that 360 camera. One thing I did in October, I have it's in that side pocket where the cell phone tripod was. It's a tiny little selfie stick for the Insta360, and it has little tripod feet. So you can bring it up to almost eye level, and you can set up the 360 camera and put it in time-lapse mode and record a good time-lapse of kind of just ambient environment during the eclipse. Could be interesting if you have one, something to consider. Now, one other thing. So going back to the Seestar versus the, let me get this up. So the Seestar versus this telephoto lens with a solar filter. Now, one thing I had been thinking about recently was, well, I'm bringing the Seestar, and that'll be good for totality. And it's nice because it's just autonomous. You just kind of turn it on, tell it to go point at the sun, turn on time-lapse mode, and you don't have to touch it again, theoretically. But the one thing that is I'd been thinking about is, how does that compare with the telephoto? And ignore the fact that there's a different in color. That's kind of it's false color. Don't worry about the color cast. But on the left here, you can see this photo was taken with the Seestar, And it's a nice close-up photo of the sun. You can see the sunspots well. And here is, it was on a different day, but you can see the sun. And it was taken with one of, it was either this camera above me or the camera that's in the backpack, just a Canon SLR, Canon mirrorless. And, you know, you think, oh man, this is not good. Like the sun is so small in here. I mean, it's not terrible. Like you can obviously see it's the sun. But the one thing I was thinking, or I wanted to quantify it. The Seestar, it has a nice sensor, but it's only 1920 by 1080 pixels. 1080 and 1920. So it's just under 2 megapixels. Now, this Canon isn't the lowest end, but it's certainly not the highest end. It's kind of like a mid-level, lower mid-level Canon, and it's 24 megapixels. So that is almost 12 times as many pixels. It's more than 3 times the resolution each dimension. So I decided, well, let me crop it. And this is what I got. So both of these images are the same resolution now. And you can see the difference with the Seestar isn't as, it's actually, the sun's actually smaller in the frame than it is. And this one on the right side is a non-crop sensor, full frame with that 600 millimeter lens. If you had a crop sensor, it would be even bigger in the frame on this one on the right side when corrected for pixel size or when corrected for resolution. Now, if you have a camera, a mirrorless that's under 24 millimeters, under 24 megapixels, or if you have one that's over 24 megapixels, the results will differ. But it kind of shows you that if you have at least a 600 millimeter lens and a camera with about that 20 to 30 megapixel, you can get as close in to the sun cropped with the same quality theoretically as the Seestar. So that was a nice reassurance for me as far as like I'm going to bring the Seestar just because for various reasons. But it's good that if you have a mirrorless camera or an SLR with a decent zoom and it's a decent megapixel, you can get, you don't need a telescope basically. Now, if you had a telescope, you could get an image that high, but it would be at full resolution, that magnified, but at full resolution. But I'm not bringing a telescope besides the Seestar with me. Now, the advantage of that lens, the lens is like the Seestar can't zoom out any further than this, but this is just kind of a cropped one. By default, I can see out this far. I mean, this is my field of view, so I'll be able to get plenty of corona and prominences and stuff, basically, with this one on the right, which is part of the reason why I'm bringing cameras and the Seestar. The Seestar will give the nice kind of tightly cropped view with no extra work, but then for the totality phases where at times I might want to be kind of more tightly zoomed in to the sun, other times I might want to be a little bit wider. I have that flexibility. And yet I still have the quality. Yeah, so some other things that I'm considering and thinking about for the eclipse. Like I say, I'm going to have another video where I'm going into like more specific plans. But as far as I've thought about doing video, and I probably will do some video during the eclipse. Mostly I'm going to be focused on photos. But from a video point of view, something to consider is if you have a new camera or a modern camera that can do 4K video, be careful, because those cameras tend to overheat if you record 4K for too long. And if it's sitting in the sun, it could end up overheating more quickly than you realize. So I would recommend testing it out ahead of time if you plan on recording 4K. I've done some stuff recently. I wasn't recording 4K through the lens, but I was taking some video of my setup, and one of my cameras, it didn't overheat, but it was starting to indicate that the temperature was rising, and I hadn't been recording that long. So something, just a caution for those who might want to record video. And that can happen with iPhones too, especially I've had it happen in Texas. I don't know, it probably depends on the ambient temperature, but I've definitely had my iPhone throttle itself because it was getting too warm. So that was kind of all I wanted to go over today. Just kind of reviewing what I had. If you have a camera and you're wondering kind of what else you need to do to, well, let me take a step back. So this is kind of what I'm doing. And, your mileage may vary, but if you do have a camera and you're wondering what you need to do to take a photo of an eclipse that isn't terrible, I'm going to have a on-screen link to a video that could help you out. But until then, I think that's where I want to leave it for now. So thanks for watching and have a good day.